It's back and bigger than ever. It's the unofficial 40 from Soonerscoop.com. Now, here's the entire Sooner Scoop crew. Carey, Josh, Eddie, and Bob.
All right, welcome back. It is the unofficial 40 podcast right here on Soonerscoop.com. We're on the airwaves, we're on the internet, we're on the YouTubes, we're all over the place, and it's the OG gang once again because it's a short week. George was actually in here. He's making too much noise.
Yeah,
for
he
me,
ran
though.
away. He ran away. He turned his back. He turned his back on the program.
So we'll make it the OG pod again. Josh McQuiston is here. Eddie Radosevich is here. I am here. And guess what? If you tell me to shut the F up on the message boards, I will ban you for a week. So
that seems a little soft.
Yes, I'm soft. I don't mind. Why are you going to tell someone that owns the space to shut the fuck up when it comes to talking on the pod? Like, that's not going to go well for you.
I struggle with that, Carey, because, like, as long as you're paying me, I don't really care.
I know.
I
That's
don't really care what
you don't get offended by anything.
That's a fact.
You just everything rolls off of your back. But when it comes to like the interrupting thing on the pod, like I don't understand people that have a problem with that. I really don't. Like, I try to be respectful of everybody, but when I get excited, I want to jump in there and get in on that. I do a radio show every morning with 4 people. We're always fighting for our food.
And I think people ignore that can be good because the exact reason you're talking about, like, you can say something I think is interesting. I want to dive in and talk about that. And I mean, sometimes I'm like, I don't care about the rest of the thing you had to say. I want to talk about that thing you just said. And I know, same for you guys, man. That's okay. Yeah, 100%. I need to be interrupted sometimes. That is absolutely fair.
And you and I have talked about this a lot. Like, Eddie and I have to do a radio show. You're a professional guest. So it's like,
yes,
your natural setting, your default setting is to talk as much as possible. And take up airtime for all these yutzes out there that want to just have you come on and just puke information on the airway so they don't have to do their jobs.
Guys, I mean, there are, and I know to some degree you guys get this too, but you have some balance in your lives. Like almost all I do is guest, and so when I do, like, it's 100% me. Just like, okay, Josh, we got a 15-minute slot, and they just want me to fill as much airtime.
Exactly.
And sometimes it's more. Like, they just want me. They get to go on cruise control for about 10, 15 minutes, and I'll fill it for them, and that's fine. Like, I don't have any beef with that at all. I love that. It's a free chance for me to pimp us a little bit, so that doesn't bother me at all.
Look, I read the thing that Patrick put out from the Lost Ogle today, and look, he pisses off a lot of my friends. And Eddie went after him last week over something, or a couple weeks ago.
Oh, he was shitting on Drake Stoops.
Drake Stoops,
I just
that's
said
what he was.
He was a moron.
Yeah, and Patrick is Patrick, but he did kind of make a good point today, which was, Bob Stoops and his YouTube videos are great, and I really enjoy listening to him. But Bob Stoops, what's he going to do when he's doing episode 100? And he's got to, it's like you can't, like, Pat McAfee pays Aaron Rodgers all this money to be a reoccurring guest, because he's a great guest on the show.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars. It might have been the million.
$450,000 first check he gave him, or something like that. But it's like,
I think Nick Saban's getting paid as well to be on the show.
He is. Yeah, Nick Saban gets paid. Like, that's why it reoccurs. And look, we've got some stuff in the works here that we're not ready to announce yet, but some new additions to the Scoop family. And a lot of it is like, you watch First Take in the morning, and I hate for this to be a radio lecture, but like, they have a roster of people. I love Dan Orlovsky. I'll watch Dan Orlovsky talk about football all day long, every day. And people disagree with him sometimes, but they have an interesting cast of characters that come through that show that make it interesting every day. That is and I admire what they've done, because like, they've gotten rid of the local radio. Like, oh, we're going to talk to the OSU Nation writer, coming. I know that's not a thing. I'm not trying to take a shot at like Pistols firing anything. I think they all do.
Well, you're in Oregon. It's an Oregon State side is the one that you're talking about.
Is that OSU Nation?
No, I have no idea.
Anyway, but they get these guys, just random people that most people don't know who they are. They're just to fill air. And like I do a show in the morning.
Saturday morning radio content is what that is.
Community radio.
Right.
Yeah. Like we're going to bring in the pastor from First Presbyterian to talk about the bake sale that they're having.
Yeah.
And it turns into that stuff. I want to do interesting stuff on podcasts. I want to fight with people sometimes. I mean, Eddie and I get in fights all the time. I mean, I want to interrupt you if you're going on a diatribe, Josh, about a recruit when you haven't even told anybody what position he plays. I mean, like I just want us to be better. And, you know, if that includes talking over, getting too excited about, like last week, what was it? Everybody was mad because I was too hard on the team after the West Virginia win. Or no, it was the BYU thing when I said, you know, they can't continue to play like this and go into the SEC where they're not able to extend leads. And I got kind of passionate about it. And some people did. I'm sorry. I'm gonna yell about something. I'm gonna get on soapbox. We all are. We all get on our soapboxes from time to time.
Sure.
So just chill out a little bit. Don't tell me to shut the f*** up. That I interrupt people.
Well,
I mean,
shut the f*** up.
You can tell me to shut the f*** up.
This is part of the problem too, because people people should know by now how we are going to moderate things. We don't all moderate the same.
No, they don't. We don't.
Like people can say shit to me, and I'm not going to care. Yes, I'm like, guys, like they're like, well, Carey, we know what he's going to do. Then stop fucking doing it. Like you know what's going to happen. Don't do it again. Like that's on you. Like the first guy, okay, you didn't see that coming, but we've been down this road for a while. Like, don't poke the bear. Leave Carey be. It's fine.
I think a lot of it though is that's part of the internet though, Josh. And I think that we all know that's part of the internet, and that's part of the fun that people have.
I blame most of it on the emotionally crippling job of running the Sooner Scoop Twitter account on game days. It will break you as a human being.
There are some times where I really wish that I had like internet cell coverage on the field. Yeah. Because most places that I go, you don't have it during a game. So I can't tweet it, and I can't get on the boards, and I can't do things during the game.
Yeah.
But there is a part of me that's like, that's all right. That's okay. There's some stuff that
when shit's going bad, you're
right.
Glad to
like during a game that I would probably tweet out or say that I'm more than happy with just kind of leaving in the draft folder.
If it's here's how it goes.
Or going through text message
with this crew. Like if it gets really bad during the game, Eddie just hits the war room. That's where because you can't, that's the moment where your dad would probably be calling you and you could help each other.
Right.
But you'll just tweet the war room like, I can't believe this bullshit's going on.
No doubt.
And then we'll reach
Thank
out.
God that those...
a bit of therapy.
The only thing that I was ever worried about when my Twitter got hacked was like hoping and praying that none of the DMs were leaked. Like some of the DMs that we've had or some of the discussions.
Hopefully it was someone it was someone in Russia, basically. So they didn't understand
or like
the context
Kazakhstan or something like that.
They didn't understand the context of what some of your DMs could mean
hopefully
if they were released.
Hopefully. Only the ones to Putin.
They're like, what's an ass clown? They just couldn't put it together. It was the whole thing.
So anyway, there we go. A little radio Q&A for you to start things off. And
final week of the regular
Van
season.
I'll unban you soon now that we've had this discussion on the radio. Anyway, that's a lot of vision. And enjoy vision. It's time for our enjoy vision. Fresh perspective look around. We'll cleanse the palate a little bit because we got a lot of things to put our vision on this week as TCU gets ready to come to town. Dillon Gabriel, Jackson Arnold, that discussion. We'll get into that some. But the man sitting next to me drove up through from Salt. How was the drive from Salt Lake City to Provo? Any worries about deer or anything like that?
No, I mean it's literally all highway, and it's one of like the nicest highways systems in the country. I have a feeling, and it's kind of weird because it's like you never leave like the metropolitan area of what I would call Salt Lake City. It's kind of weird. It actually is
going from Edmond to Moore.
Yes, or Edmond to Norman. Okay. It's like 40 minutes. It's a solid 40 minutes, and it's not too bad. But yeah, I had to navigate the entire way, and I was able to see, thanks to my friends at Enjoy Vision, which is the best laser vision center in Oklahoma City, and it's not even close. The combination of mind-blowing technology, experienced eyeball surgeons, and exceptional patient care was life-changing for me. What they're doing for the unofficial 40 listener, they're giving out $400 off of LASIK. All you got to do is go to enjoywithme.com and use the promo code U40. That is the letter N, J-O-Y, withme.com, and use promo code U40 for $400 off of LASIK. Enjoy vision. This is where you LASIK.
I just received an email. It's very exciting here. I don't know how I get on these lists. I'm not a Heisman voter, I think, because I've always kind of pissed off John Hoover, and he gives out the votes. But anyway, I am a voter in the Maxwell Award and the Bednarik Award.
Oh, wow. A lot of pressure.
And I just got my ballot for the semifinalists. I have to choose my top 3 nominees for the Maxwell Award. Any suggestions?
Bo Nix.
Well, Daniels is an automatic.
Jaden
Daniels. Yes, I would. Now I do it 1, 2, 3. Ooh, I got it. It's Brock Bowers has been hurt, but I mean, God, he deserves to be on there. Jordan Travis just broke his leg.
Maxwell is any offensive player, right?
Yes. Dillon Gabriel is on the list. Ollie Gordon is on the list. Bo Nix, Michael Penix, Caleb Williams, Marvin Harrison Jr., Drake May.
Can I say something really stupid?
You know what? I want to put Luther Burden in my top 3.
He's been awesome.
He is an incredible wide receiver.
Case. Yeah.
I mean, he's Missouri.
I think he's the second best wide receiver in college football.
And here's the thing.
Behind Marvin Harrison.
When I vote, I believe if a player has helped elevate a team beyond what they normally are, they have to be considered. Like Marvin Harrison Jr., he's really good, and they might have won a national championship if he hadn't got hurt against Georgia last year. But I don't know that I can really say that he's elevated Ohio State to a level beyond what they are capable of being without him. Now, Jaden Daniels is certainly that guy. LSU's not doing anything without him.
With Marvin, you've got to consider how much the year they didn't have Buka and they didn't have Travion Henderson. Like, I don't know what they would have done offensively if it wasn't for him for big chunks of the year. I think he's the best player in college football. Now, I get why he may not get the votes, and Kyle McCord, I mean, you know, he hasn't put up the numbers he probably could have with a different quarterback under center. But, yeah, I think I would probably have Daniels. I hate to be – I don't know about Nix at 2. Like, I think Nix has been gained a lot from being on clearly the most talented team in the Pac-12.
Does Jalen Milroe deserve being in the discussion? Alabama quarterback.
I don't think so.
If you were given an award for like the last 4 weeks, maybe. But, I mean, the guy virtually got benched after the Texas game.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think it was a suspension that was never really truly reported, but I'm
not sure that I would.
I think the winner of the Alabama-Georgia game is winning the national championship, as crazy as that may sound.
I'm not so sure
that
Blake Corum isn't a better pick than some of the quarterbacks. Because that's one of the biggest reasons Michigan's where they are.
Yeah. And you look at it, their offensive line, like I feel like it's kind of like 2019 OU after you have the 17 group, the 18 group, and you're like, oh man, they're so great. And they were still pretty good, but there was clearly a fall off from where they were. And I think Michigan's kind of there right now, like, because you look at some of the stuff they've done, and people say, oh, they're running 7 offensive linemen out there. Yeah, because they couldn't really pass protect against Penn State. So they went jumbo and just smashed Penn State. They went at it that way. And I feel like they've been a little more limited, and he's still been very productive.
Okay, I've made my decision. Here's what I'm doing.
Okay.
This isn't like one of those Heisman Trophy things where you can't disclose, can you?
Well, they don't know if I'm really doing this or not. They're not going to. I don't know. I'm going to go with Jaden Daniels, number 1. And because he's a quarterback, now I'm eliminating all other quarterbacks.
Okay.
And then I'm going with Luther Burden, number 2.
Okay.
And Blake Corum, number 3.
Interesting. I really kind of like, and the more I think about it, I like the Luther Burden thing a lot, because he has been. I'm trying to look up Corum. What he's. I don't know what his numbers have been like this year. Not that I'm a pure stats guy, but I mean I just don't know. Yeah, I mean,
I'd
had
really
145 in their biggest game today. He hasn't even rushed for 1,000 yards this year. Now, you have to remember they played such a dog shit schedule for the first 2 months. Like he's got 3 games all year where he's had more than 20 carries. So I don't know if he'd be 3 for me. I would probably go Marvin. I could argue Marvin or Luther in either, just because I think Marvin is so uniquely special.
I got to say, the names that pop to me for the Bednarik, Dallas Turner, who's the Cooper guy from A&M, Edgerrin Cooper.
Yeah.
Who else am I leaving off of there? I mean,
the Latau kid from UCLA. I don't know how much you guys got to watch him against USC. He's really stinking good. He ain't gonna win it because just enough people, not enough people know him.
Latu.
Mm-hmm.
Tavondre Sweat. I mean, he's had a really good year.
Yeah, that wouldn't be the word. Byron Murphy. I could make that case too. Byron Murphy is just dominant at times.
He's not on the list,
is more likely to. Oh, okay. Well, then that's easy enough.
I am not taking these pad stuffers from Old Dominion. That's for sure.
Absolutely not.
Have you seen all that crap? I think we talked about that with George early on a lot.
I've tweeted about it because it like they had 3 of the top 7 tackle guys in the country were all from Old Dominion. Like it was insane. It just didn't make any sense at all.
All right, I'll finish the defense later because this discussion's getting kind of weird. But so anyway, no, I don't understand why I get votes sometimes for that. Like they've given me Hall of Fame votes before. I don't understand why. It's just weird. So Jackson Arnold, Dillon Gabriel. We went out to practice yesterday. We saw Dillon Gabriel out there playing catch with Jeff Lebby's son. Cutest thing in the world.
He's the definition of a chunk kid. I love him. I love seeing the kid. He's hilarious. I find him to be the best.
But he didn't have his shoulder pads on.
He did not. He had his helmet, but he didn't have his shoulder pads.
But to me, being dressed out and running around,
it's a positive. It's a positive that he was out there.
If it was a very serious, severe concussion, I don't think he would have even been out there yesterday.
Now, it was night, so it wasn't, the
like,
daylight.
Did he wait till the sun
sure,
went down?
I don't know.
Was it for show?
No, I think he was out there to be out there support. Like, it wasn't just for the media to see him, okay, he's out there. I don't think.
Just a reminder, he did warm up against Texas last year.
Yeah. But I think as we found out, he was basically ruled out on Wednesday of that week.
Mm-hmm.
If that tells you anything about the concussion protocol that Oklahoma puts some of these players through, and with this being a short week, knowing that they practiced on Sunday, knowing that they practiced again yesterday, I don't know. I think it's unlikely that he is the starter on Saturday or on Friday.
I've heard that George plans to visit a lot of his ex-professors this week. Maybe some across from the practice field that have, classes over there.
Yeah, we might have to go over there today.
But media is done for the week. We did everything on Monday. So it's one of those things. Brent Venables moved his press conference up to Monday. We had our practice availability yesterday. So outside of us just digging, there's not going to be a whole lot out there in regards to how close he is to being able to play.
Right. And, I think that it's kind of exciting in a way if this is the way that the Jackson Arnold era begins, kind of in earnest as he makes his, possibly makes his first start coming on Friday in the season finale.
A lot of pressure. I mean,
sure.
to start versus to come in, not knowing that you're going to play in that game.
Sure.
I mean, and Brent said it, what is it, Tuesday? We're trying to get everything done early this week because of Thanksgiving, obviously, so we're recording the pod on Tuesday. But yesterday he, made the I'm trying to even think. You were just saying something. There was something he said yesterday that struck me, and that's fallen out of my head all of a sudden.
About practice yesterday? Or Jackson Arnold possibly starting?
I don't even know now. I've lost all train of thought.
Interesting. It'll
come back to me.
I think it's kind of fascinating that this could be like the start of the Jackson Arnold era, if you will. And there's a lot of players that are going to be around him that, probably most likely will be returning next year, barring any unforeseen transfer portal additions. It's I don't know. It is kind of exciting knowing that this could be the start of what will be the next couple years at the quarterback position at Oklahoma. And obviously, if they were to get some help in playing the Big 12 championship or playing the bowl game, Dillon's going to be the starter. But it's kind of exciting knowing like this is the moment that a lot of people have been waiting for in terms of a 5-star taking over at the quarterback position.
And the only thing yesterday that I wished we could have done more of, which was talk to other receivers besides Drake Stoops. Like Jalil Farouk has been hurt, and he's still day-to-day at this point. He took a vicious shot around the neck and the head late in the game there that I think a lot of people didn't realize, that might put him out next week, and now you're wondering.
He popped up, though, the way that you would expect somebody to be.
But he laid there for a while, and then he let go of the football.
For sure, and I thought, just watching it live, when they went back to review it, I initially thought, oh, shit, did he drop the ball? Because how, might have that changed the outcome of the game.
They looked at that.
But I think that they were reviewing, and I don't know, maybe they said on the television broadcast, were they looking at the spot?
It was a terrible broadcast. Like, there were very few replays throughout the entire
game. Well, get ready
game.
For this week. Tim Brando's coming to Norman, so that should be exciting for a lot of people.
This shit's on FS1?
Yeah, I think so.
I got you, Toby. I'm listening.
We're playing on a Friday. We're covering a game on a Friday so Tim Brando could come in and broadcast it?
That's right.
Jesus.
Wait, okay. I'm scared to ask who is with Tim Brando.
Spencer Tillman.
Spencer Tillman, and then somebody that I have never heard of on the sideline. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. I just really didn't recognize the name.
The hits just keep coming.
It's really hard, too, because I think Tim Brando must be a super nice guy for him to still have a job. I just don't like listening to his games. He's just a dinosaur.
He's a little much for me.
Yeah. Okay, and you said it, just because Jackson Arnold might start this game doesn't mean he'll start the bowl game.
No, I mean, unless that was the situation that for some reason or another Dillon Gabriel opted out of the game. I mean,
I can't imagine.
And I could even, this could all be null and void by Friday morning, and Dillon Gabriel could be the starter, which I think in all heart of hearts I would like to see, just because I want to see him kind of in this thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're sitting there talking to Drake Stoops yesterday, and I'm thinking to myself, man, the way these two have played down the stretch, it's almost criminal that they're not going to be on the field together in their last game.
Sure. And again, they'll have the bowl game or, possibly a Big 12 championship if they were to get there.
And by the way, one of the reasons I told George, hey, work on your stories, he's going to have a fantastic story Thursday on the website, and you're going to be able to hear from Bob, Mark, Mike, all of his uncles, just about his final game. I will say this, talking to George yesterday, it doesn't sound like Bob is the emotional type here, which I would expect nothing less. Like, there's going to be no tears being shed, I don't think, by Bob.
No, I think he's super proud of him, and, just kind of the journey and watching him go from Norman North to kind of what he's become at Oklahoma. Like, I think that George put it best on Twitter a couple days ago, or maybe a week ago, or 2 weeks ago after the Oklahoma State loss, when, Drake and his comments went viral. He has turned into the perfect depiction of kind of what Brent Venables, I think, wants in a football player and what he means to the program and everything that is to come. It's also crazy, too. George mentioned this the other day that, after Saturday and, obviously after the bowl game, it'll end like a 25-year run of Stoops being crazy. A part of the Oklahoma football program.
Crazy. And Josh, it's funny, too, because, I mean, you think about where this all started with Bob and, slot receivers and how Wes Welker kind of changed football in a lot of ways. If there hadn't been a Wes Welker, if there hadn't been a Julian Edelman, a Danny Amendola, like, everybody would be talking about Drake Stoops as kind of one of those kind of game changer type guys. Like, he is, for considering Bob did not offer, I ran through all the names, Wes Welker. And, even after the last game, it was one of the few times Bob was ever like, I made a mistake. I should have recruited you. And Wes was like, no, everything worked out the way it should have. And to have a son that goes through and is a very similar type player, probably, I don't think anybody could say they have more fire than Wes Welker, but I'd say Drake is pretty much equal to the task when it comes to just determination and just aggressive, an aggressive nature and a leadership. But like it's funny to me because I think of the irony of how much Drake is a lot like Wes Welker.
Well, and it's a great point because I know, and we mentioned the Lost Ogle kind of taking shots. Like anybody trying to paint that kid as like, oh, it's because of who his dad was. Stop. Like that's not the deal. I remember talking to like when he was at Norman North, and people forget he helped lead that Norman North team to a state finals. I think that was his junior year.
Yep.
Maybe that was his senior year. I can't remember. It was one or the other.
I think it was his senior year because it was with him and Charlie Kohler and all those guys.
Mm-hmm.
Or was that
right. Or John Kohler? John Kohler. It might have been his junior year.
Was that when they had Jordan Evans?
Jordan would have been a little bit older, I think.
Oh, he was a little bit older.
Yeah, Jordan would be gone. Yeah. They had somebody else that I'm forgetting though. It doesn't matter. I think it was one of the Mashburns. Anyway, a good Norman North team. And, guys, they fought Union hard a couple of times that year. And I remember talking to Trey Brown about Drake, and it was one of the things that kind of fed that whole conversation where I had a bunch of people on the board thinking I was crazy because I was like, I bet you he ends up with more career catches than any of the Weiss, Bridges, Hazelwood group. I bet you he'll I'm telling you, this kid's going to have a good career. And I remember talking to Trey, and Trey was just like, dude, he's tough. Like every single time he's going to fight you and scrap. And like, he was like, he's a tough kid. And he goes, it's not just like that though. He's really smart. He'll set you up. He'll put you in bad positions. And some of that is coaching, but at the same time, like now those guys are all well coached and he's still giving people trouble. Cause I mean, they were talking about it all through that broadcast, Eddie. I don't know if you've gone back and listened to it, but Louis Riddick's talking the whole time. They're like, he'll make you right. Like even if the play is wrong or if the throw is wrong, Drake will fix it. And it's impressive to watch him and just the little nuances of his game that I don't think other guys pick up as naturally for whatever reason. But he is just so good at letting one play set up the next play.
Yeah, and I think we all saw him kind of take it to another level, just the intensity and the playmaking. And, it was really – this year was the first time you felt like he and Dillon were just completely in sync. And it was fun to watch there. I mean,
yeah, I go back to all the stuff that they talked about at the beginning of August and maybe even over the summer, even at the course of the spring ball and, all of those, throwing sessions and stuff that they did and wondering how that is going to come together. And it truly did. He's become kind of a force for Oklahoma, and especially a guy that when they've needed a big grab, especially after the Andrell Anthony injury, which seems like forever ago, he's kind of turned into that guy for them.
I want to get back to I want to come back to the receiver position and the possibility of Jackson Arnold starting. But before I do that, I want to remind you guys our great sponsor, Prime Shrimp. PrimeShrimp.com, PRIME shrimp.com. Make any meal special. Get rid of those delivery fees. Go order your shrimp online. It comes to you frozen. You just boil some water in 10 minutes. Less than 10 minutes, you've got a restaurant-quality meal. And if you use the promo code U40, you're going to get 25% off your entire order of $50 and more. You can choose between all the different styles: garlic herb butter shrimp, the signature Cajun seasoned shrimp, the French Quarter Alfredo, lemon and cracked pepper, New Orleans-style barbecue shrimp, I believe the McQuistion household favorite. So go check them out. PrimeShrimp.com. Use that promo code U40. Get 25% off your entire order of $50 or more. A lot of great shrimp recipes on the website, too, for you to check out, whether it's mini shrimp tostadas or a barbecue shrimp po' boy. Go check it out, primeshrimp.com. Okay, so here's the thing. You saw Jackson Arnold's first deep pass the other day to Nick Anderson. Is a little overthrown. People kind of took note of that, but I think that's one of those things like, you're juiced, you're out there, you got your first big pass play called. That's if he gets the start, and Jaden Gibson coming on like he has, like how is that connection going to be with Nick Anderson and Jaden Gibson? I think that's the biggest question everybody will have.
I will say though, the ball that was overthrown to Nick Anderson, that thing comes out of his hand a little bit differently than others.
We knew that, didn't we?
Yeah, but I think it was good to see that. I mean, you looked at the throw, what was it, against Tulsa, the touchdown throw to Nick Anderson. It just, to step in and be able to do that, just kind of, off the sideline, basically, super impressive.
I did like how people had to try and decipher Fig Jam last week.
That is a classic Phil Mickelson reference.
That used to be his nickname, right?
Yes.
And Fig Jam stands for?
Fuck, I'm good, just ask me.
That is the greatest nickname.
It's great.
Well, guys, and, just compare that, though, to the deep ball to Jaden Gibson, which is a touchdown if Gabriel can lead him out there. And we've seen it all year. I think if you wanted to fault Dillon Gabriel for it much, I mean, I know some of you fans will be mad at Gabriel or find flaws no matter what we say or what you give him credit for. You watch the guy, he's played really good football this year. There's no question about it. But at the same time, if there's been any question, and I think it's been both years, is his deep ball. There is, I don't know if it's arm strength, I don't know if it's hesitancy to make the throw as early as he should or whatever it may be, but it hasn't been there. It's pretty clear watching that throw to Nick Anderson, that's not going to be the problem. Like that's not going to be an issue. And somebody asked me what it kind of indicates for next year. What does that lead into with Oklahoma? And I kind of wonder if he plays and if he gets a little more time, are they a little less stop and start because some of the big plays are there? Maybe they are a little bit more aggressive downfield. Maybe they're a little bit more capable downfield, but maybe there are a few more hiccups as you let a young quarterback kind of learn his way through things.
I just heard you guys talking about Drake Stoops and also Jackson Arnold. Did you know if Drake Stoops catches a pass from Jackson Arnold on Friday?
Wait. How many different quarterbacks?
Can you take a guess how many different quarterbacks he's caught a pass from?
Kyler?
Yep, that's
Jalen?
Mm-hmm.
Rattler? Mm-hmm. Caleb? Dillon? 5? 6? And it would be Jackson? 6?
Wait a minute.
There's 2 more.
Wait a minute.
2 more?
Davis Bevel?
No. Ooh. Oh, Davis Bevel actually might be on the list, Josh. I need to look that up.
Go scurry back and figure out your trivia question, then come back.
Think of the other 2. There's 2 more.
General?
Oh.
No?
Think back
2018,
2019. Think back.
Oh shit.
We're getting into the
Tanner Mordecai.
Tanner Mordecai. That's a good call. There has to be one. So there's one more. 2018.
It's got to be who were the walk-ons then?
Yeah, because it would have been. Yeah, you're right.
Dang it!
You ever play with Schaefer?
Might be Caleb Schaefer.
Austin Kendall.
Austin Kendall. Damn. Good stat,
if
George.
He had caught a pass from Caleb Schaefer, that would have been truly magic.
Tanner Schaefer.
Yeah,
that'd be amazing if he caught a pass from Caleb Schaefer.
Carey said Caleb.
That would be amazing.
Caleb Schaefer is a current offensive lineman. Yeah,
and we haven't seen 6'5", 340.
8 weeks. Yes,
that is correct.
Who we may not see again.
Caleb Schaefer just did. That's hilarious. I didn't realize Caleb Schaefer just disappeared from the face of the earth.
Yeah, that might be a better trivia question. Who finished the drive at right guard for Oklahoma in the OU Texas game?
He did catch a pass from Davis Bevel.
So 7 different guys.
9
different guys. That's crazy.
But he's got to catch a pass from Jackson Arnold.
What a pass catcher. Where does, Drake will probably, and George would probably be able to look it up, or I could look it up. Where does he end up ranking all-time OU receptions?
Oh, George has looked it up quite. It's I think he's 11th or something right now, or 8th. Okay.
That's crazy.
The thing is, you have Ryan Broyles that has 3 years full of best catches. You have D.D. Westbrook. He has a whole bunch. Yeah, he's
11th, 146. He's 11 behind.
With 12
Antoine
catches,
Savage,
though, he did end up 9th. He jumped Antoine Savage and his current coach.
I think it's pretty likely that he has 9 grabs over the final 2 games.
12. He need 12.
12 grabs.
He's 11 behind.
Okay. Mm-hmm. He's had a hell of a career. It's going to be sad to see him go. Been around for forever, too.
It was sad to see him being interviewed yesterday because I was like, it just immediately hit me like, damn, that's the last time we're going to interview him.
You say that Bob's probably not going to be just terribly emotional on Friday. Drake's kind of the same way, but I do think that, like, just talking to him last night, like, I think he really, certainly is proud of what he's been able to accomplish, but I think it's starting to set in a little bit that this is kind of that final, if you will, that last go round of certainly regular season ball, and then we'll see whatever the future, the rest of the year holds.
What I'm looking forward to most about George's story about Drake is the realization of what a shit talker Drake Stoops really is, and which parent or uncle takes most credit for that.
Sure,
because that's a big part of the story. I'm told, and I'm not revealing.
That's
anything.
a tease.
That's a tease. Yes. Subscribe to Sooner Scoop.
Hey, Josh, we were talking about the quarterback situation, and, obviously Dillon's had a really good year. You think he's the first team All Big 12 guy?
I think he has to be, doesn't he? Quinn Ewers has missed a lot of time.
Yeah.
Jaden Daniels obviously is a non-starter in that conversation. I don't even know who you'd pick over him. I mean, it's not saying that he hasn't played well, but he almost is by default.
Well, I mean, it comes down to our discussion. Like, I think Ollie Gordon will probably, depending on who gets in the Big 12 championship game, I think Ollie Gordon will end up being the most valuable offensive player. But right behind him will be Dillon Gabriel.
Yeah, you would think so.
Yeah.
You would think so.
Now, if something goes haywire and Dillon plays this game and he throws for 350 yards and they get in, then there's still a chance that Dillon Gabriel could be offensive player, just depending on what happens to Ollie Gordon in his last game.
Sure.
Does Billy Bowman have a real chance to be the defensive player of the year?
I think they're going to give it to Sweat.
I think it's a different question of, should he be in contention? Yes. Will he actually get it? Probably not. And I think
you think it's just Sweat?
Yes. And rightfully so. I mean, the guy's been
No, I don't have a problem with that.
Right.
He's been dominant. No.
It's kind of like the conversation that George and I were having before we started recording, just in terms of Danny Stutsman being left off of the Butkus list. I know that George tweeted out the numbers today. At the same time, I wonder almost if, because Oklahoma's been so bad defensively over the past, X many years, are some of the players on OU's current defense not necessarily getting the recognition that they are due because it was so bad, if that makes sense.
I think that's fair because I still I look around and I just keep hearing people talk about, oh yeah, we knew OU's run defense wasn't any good. What are you talking about? I thought BYU was so. I'm not saying OU's run defense has been excellent or anything. That's not. But people keep trying to paint it like it's the same as it has been, and I don't know what world they're living in. And I mean, even a guy I really respect, like Louis Riddick was talking about this during the BYU game, and I think he's a really sharp dude. But I'm I don't know what you've been. I mean, guys, I haven't looked at the numbers, but I would guess two of the worst games Jonathan Brooks and Ollie Gordon had were against Oklahoma. I don't think that's a coincidence. That they are good. They're not a great run defense, and I don't know. I feel like I've seen more problems in pass defense than I have in the run game.
It's a travesty that Danny Stutsman wasn't at least a semifinalist for the Butkus Award. I mean, you look at the numbers, and it's almost kind of mind-blowing that he wasn't.
Here's what hurts Danny is missing that OSU game, because
why does he get punished for being hurt?
Well, no, what I'm saying is, so he is second in the league in tackles. He only played 10 games because he missed the OSU game, but he is 19 tackles behind Nicholas Martin from Oklahoma State, who played 11.
Who's just been an animal.
Yeah, he's been great. I'm not saying he's not deserving of being the leading tackler, but I mean, if he doesn't miss that game, then he's right up there once again 2 years in a row leading the Big 12 in tackles, or possibly doing that. And maybe that's a better, I know the finalists have already been selected, but
of the five finalists for the Butkus Award this year, Danny Stutsman, and George tweeted this out, he has more tackles than three of them and more tackles for loss than four of the five. And that's despite missing about a game and a half. He has 91 tackles, and he has 15 and a half tackles for loss this year. And like George said, when you look at the Butkus Award website, it talks about how much, this player means to that team. You can't say that, especially after watching what he was able to do this past weekend, as well as the rest of the year. When he is on the field, this defense is drastically better.
You know what's crazy is there's not another single OU player in the top 25 in tackles in the conference. By the way, Jamal Morris is 23rd for Houston.
Really?
Yes.
That's a blast from the past. I haven't thought about him in forever.
Well, he allegedly got that penalty on 4th and 16.
Oh, really? That was him that got the taunting call?
They said it was him, but I swear to God it was the Hamilton guy, the number 23, that had the pick six earlier. Because if you go back and watch that, he was the one leaning over Ollie Gordon. So
he was playing the Canic role?
Yes, it was exactly playing the Canic role.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I think Jamal and Iguebu, it seems like U of H is fairly happy with both of those guys. I think they played decent football for them this year. But yeah, the guys, I mean, and that was the thing too. Like, and I, listen to you guys in the post game, and obviously Eddie, George, and I talking on Monday. There was this feeling you're like, well, he didn't play very well. Like, and I'm not saying he did really, like compared to what we've seen from him all year, but he had 10 tackles and 2 tackles for loss. And I mean, like, you're like, that's not by almost any other linebacker standard. That's great. That's better than any linebacker we've seen at Oklahoma in a while, save for like late 2021 Brian Asamoah. But like, I can't think of anybody that's even been close. And with Danny, like that performance, you're like, yeah, that wasn't very good, Danny. It's just, you can tell he's changing the standard of how you look at that position again. It's starting to become something where you expect that group to be good rather than just saying, well, it wasn't awful.
I'll tell you one of the things that impressed me Monday night. I was talking to Kobe McKenzie. I mean, just a guy that gets it. Like, you can tell he's like talking to a grown man. I mean, and he's still so young and just getting his feet underneath him, yet he speaks like someone that's like a fifth-year senior.
Yeah. Yeah.
Taking ownership.
And he's also been really good in some of the limited experience that he's been able to get. And I guess I can't say limited. He's played quite a bit, but he played really well, I thought, on Saturday in Provo in a spot that I think as a whole, and Brent said it on Monday, the linebacker group did not play very well at all.
No. A lot of missed run fits by the linebackers. And Kobe owned up to that. He was like, yeah, we went and watched the film, and it was fun. It was interesting to me because he referenced Brent Venables' press conference. Like, he's, okay, you're sitting back in the room watching that press conference.
I noticed that as well. I was like, oh, shit, he must have been watching.
No, but, I mean, regardless of what happens with Danny, and maybe we could talk about that as well, because you've got a lot of guys that are facing decisions.
Yeah.
Billy Bowman being one of them, and Brent talked about that. You guys talked about it on the practice report.
We talked it on the practice report. I mean, you listen to those comments, and I think it's very clear that he would prefer that Billy Bowman come back next year, because then you have truly a foundation going into the SEC, whether it be, Billy or Danny, or maybe you talk somebody like a DJ Terry and coming back. You could have foundational pieces at every level of the defense going into next year, and a defense that you would expect. We've seen the improvement that they made from year 1 to year 2. You would only expect that to get even better from year 2 to year 3.
Well, and just the leadership on this team that you have now. I mean, some of those guys.
I mean, you would have at least 2 returning for sure permanent captains for this team in Team 129. 2 of the 7 could definitely, or 3 of the 7 with Ethan Downs, certainly could come back next year.
Yeah. And I don't see why Ethan wouldn't come back. I mean, married, he's not there yet, but he's made a lot of progress.
And I don't know this. I asked Danny on Monday morning when he came on the radio show that, if he's even thought about it, and I certainly didn't expect him to say one way or the other.
We asked Trace for the same thing.
But and Trace can come back too,
right?
Which would be interesting. I think that just based off of how much fun I think he's having in college, and his relationship with Brent, and his relationship with Jaron, and that entire linebacking room, he could really come back. And, I think we've talked about this before, but he could come back and really set a legacy for what Danny Stutsman means to the University of Oklahoma.
And something Trace said to me was, and these guys all have to get their draft grades back. They all have to hear, if they're going to get drafted upper round, lower round, free agent, they'll find all that stuff out. But Trace was like, you know what? I look at Danny Stutsman. He got so much better in his second year under Venables' defense, and everybody notices that.
Yeah.
Like, another year with Brent Venables, I think those guys really do believe we're going to get better.
Is there a guy outside of Tyler Guyton that you would say, yes, you need to go for the right reasons, not yes, you need to go because we just, somewhat want to process you?
No. I mean, there's nobody there that has that physical skill set that you're like, oh, yeah, he's got to go. Like, I mean, even Billy, like, as good as I think Billy is, and Billy was just, I can't say enough about how good he was against BYU. But at the same time, Billy's 5'10", 185 pounds. He had the bad injury last year where he missed a lot of time. And I think even after he came back, we all acknowledged, and, I think he probably would even say the same. He wasn't himself last year. And I honestly don't think until, probably Cincinnati, Texas, you really started to see Billy play like the guy that we all kind of thought he was going to be as a young player. So if you have another year of tape, you can show that, okay, you're a little undersized, but you've shown durability. You've shown you can hold up. And plus, guys, I wonder how much the appeal of you get to be the first Oklahoma team to play in the SEC. You get to go answer not just about the SEC, but you get to go show all these NFL scouts, I can play against Alabama. I can play against LSU. I can do all that stuff week in and week out because it's just one more box you check for these scouts where they say, we don't have to worry about who he's played against. He's not playing against Kansas and Cincinnati and UCF. Like, this is Bama, LSU, you go down the list. So to me, I think Guyton's the only one that you say, yeah, that almost has to happen.
Well, you know what? If you're an agent, you're probably telling him, look, they find talent no matter where it is. But what they're saying is someone's going to take a chance on you. Like, someone's going to believe in you, but not all 32 teams. Like, you might have 2 teams or 3 teams. If you go to the SEC and you show that your athleticism is just as good, all 32 teams are going to know that you have that talent that they want.
And, I mean, Billy's going to go to the guys. If he's playing like this, he's a top 2 or 3 safety in the SEC next year. Like, with guys like Malachi Starks of Georgia, Caleb Downs, Alabama's a freak monster. And then, you've got other guys coming along. But, guys, just looking at the defense, there are only 7 guys that absolutely will not be returning next year. And one of them is Phil Paya, who's played no real role. And another is Marcus Stripling, who has been a role player his whole career. And I like Marcus, but it just is what it is. He's a guy that is not going to be a loss that's really felt.
Yeah, I know you guys were talking about this, Eddie, and I think maybe we talked about it in the recruiting report on Monday, but what has to happen for I want to say the whole name, Adipuje Adibaware.
What do you mean?
Like, Josh, what do you think has to happen for it? Is it simply just reps? Is it
like to get onto the field more?
To make it to be that guy we all think he could be. Is it just maturity? Is it weight room? Is it
It's probably a little bit of everything, to be completely honest.
Yeah. Because, I say it all the time. I mean, this is a guy that didn't even come into his junior season really the plan wasn't for the junior season of high school to be a defensive end. He was a tight end, and they just kind of like, well, let's try him here at defensive end, and he's a monster. So there's a lot he is still learning and trying to figure out. But to me, the biggest thing is the weight room. I mean, you guys are there. You can see the growth he made from when, you all first saw him last summer at OU's camp to where he is now is huge. But you give that guy a full off season, he can go through everything, be at the training table, all those things. Guys, I would guess next year he's going to show up at 260 pounds or more. Like, he's going to be a different human being. And then you really can just let his athleticism start to take over, because he's not going to get physically overwhelmed, half the time.
Well, and I think that, too, just going through an offseason in which that you're expected to be a guy as opposed to being a freshman, and kind of getting the ins and outs of just learning how to be a freshman and be on your own and all that other, BS stuff. I think it will probably help him in the long run, and it's really exciting when you think about what he could end up being.
Yeah, absolutely. So, outside of that, we did kind of get into, who was going to stay, who was going to go. Is there anybody that we really haven't, that's up in the air, you think, that we haven't discussed?
Well, I think that there are, Jalil Farouk, I think he has the option.
Sure, yeah.
I think that there's been some indication that it's not necessary. Josh, how would you term this? Is it expected that he returns next year? I guess I would be more surprised if he declared than I would if he says, I'm going to come back and sign back up with this.
I would be very surprised to see him go. Now, I know George has mentioned, him just kind of being a confident guy and believing, okay, I'll go make something happen. And let's be honest, the NFL likes receivers like Jalil Farouk that have that kind of big physical build. They can line him up in the backfield. They can motion him around. That's kind of Kyle Shanahan impact around football as a whole. So that has a role. But, guys, somebody's brought it up, and I can't get it out of my head. Drake leaves, and you move Jalil Farouk into that slot and let Andrell Anthony and Nick Anderson be your two outside guys. That's a lot of danger. Like that's a lot of game-changing ability. And you think about Farouk's ability after the catch as he's coming across the middle and doing some of that stuff and letting him go in motion and do some of the stuff that Drake does. I think that's incredibly interesting. Like, and it also, again, is a great, way that OU can say, hey, look, you can do this with you, and you can show off even more to NFL scouts. We can show even bigger range of what you can be as a player.
I really enjoyed seeing him make those 2 third down catches in the fourth quarter on Saturday, just because it seems like that's one thing that he really doesn't do a whole lot of, catching balls in traffic, or at least it doesn't seem like it.
They throw him a lot of jumps, and I've always I talked about this, I think, after the West Virginia game, where he kind of said, well, that's not really his game. That's not what he's about. Now, he can do it because he's a talented guy, but I'd much rather be getting the ball to him quickly, like on stuff like that, and then letting him make something happen. Or, guys like the play that Oklahoma hit on the final drive against both Texas and Oklahoma State, where they catch Drake kind of running that deep middle, and he just kind of finds that space. Let Farouk do that, who's bigger, faster, and stronger than Drake, and maybe that play's even bigger. Now, I'm not. That's again, we've given Drake his flowers. I'm not shooting him down. I'm just saying Farouk brings something different to that role, in my opinion.
We know, Marcus Hicks is going to enter the portal. Not a shocking surprise. Wish that would have worked out more than it did, but you think, he's got to be sitting there going, I played with Breece Hall, and he's like one of the best running backs best young running backs in the NFL, and I'm not even starting in college. Like, at some point, you just have to try something different.
Yeah, am I an idiot for thinking that, did he not have an injury that basically made him, I don't want to say forced retirement by any means, because he
did have
obviously
an injury early, and I can't remember if it was like a shoulder or...
Well, and it just never seemed like it was...
I was say it was a back thing.
Okay. Yeah. And it just never seemed like he had the position changed, he flip-flopped from offense to defense. It just never seemed to work out.
He looked the part in the uniform. Was the disappointing part.
I thought he looked great as a tackle. Offensive tackle.
I remember seeing him. The first time I ever saw him was at a Nike camp in Dallas. I think it was the spring of his sophomore year going into his junior season, and being like, holy crap. Because he was like 6'5", 220 then. But you're like, I don't know what he's going to be, but he's pretty damn interesting. And when OU signed him, I always thought offensive tackle was possible, because I didn't know if he moved like he needed to as he started to put on weight in high school. But when they moved into offensive tackle, I thought, here we go. This is going to be going to be really good, and it just never happened.
Yeah, and I don't know though. Do you keeping an eye on anybody else that you think, okay, I could see that.
Yeah, this was something that was brought up on the board, and I just I think that there's some conventional thought that if everybody were to come back to the, if Danny Stutsman said he's coming back, is there a linebacker that looks at the roster, looks at the depth chart, and you have Phil Picotti coming back off of injury next year? Is there one of the guys that maybe has played a little bit? And I certainly don't think it's you start going through the list. I don't think Kobe's the guy that would transfer. I don't think Jaron's the guy that would transfer. Kip Lewis certainly is not going to transfer. There's a number of guys that if they were to enter the transfer portal, I just don't think it's going to be anybody that's a major contributor or nobody that it would be a surprise.
It'd have to be a young guy that you just didn't know was kind of upset, like a Lewis Carter or something like that.
Right, but he's also played a little bit. Like Samuel Masiga's coming back next year. He's going to have a big role in the cheetah position. He got a little bit of a taste when Deshaun was out against West Virginia. Wide receiver, I start thinking about names, though. Like J.J. Hester's a guy that, wouldn't you think that he's probably not going to give a whole lot to Oklahoma in the future?
What about a guy like Jason Llewellyn?
If you can't get onto the field right now, you certainly don't think that you're going to get on when Devon Mitchell shows up.
He had some interesting tweets.
Yeah, sure. Didn't he had something deleted during the Oklahoma State game?
Something about somebody was ripping on Stogner or
something. Or maybe it was the West Virginia game.
And he threw out like a
Yeah, then it was immediately deleted.
Right.
Yeah, I mean...
Or no, I think it may be somebody ripping on Levy's play calling or something.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly what it was, but that sounds right. I never saw the tweet. I saw somebody...
It was OU Barstool account tweeted during the OSU game, how do we not have a tight end better than Austin Stogner?
Yeah, that's right.
Llewellyn quote tweeted and said,
I mean, in talking about the portal, I do think that tight end and kicker, those are two positions for sure you need to go get some bodies.
Offensive line. They've got to find some bodies.
Just like everybody else in the country.
Not where they need to be. Yeah, 100%. Now, I will say, at defensive end, I think Oklahoma can afford to be fairly choosy at defensive end. If they find a guy they really like, cool, great, go get him. But, I mean, if you assume Trace Ford comes back, Ethan Downs comes back, you have some depth, and then you've got young guys like Danny and Nigel and Wyatt Gilmore coming along that you say, okay, those guys can pick up snaps and, get us through practice. They can get some snaps and some of the not preseason, but some of the out-of-conference games early in the year. But defensive tackle, I mean, you lose Kelly, Laulu. They really need Jacob Lacey to come back. I assume that he will. I don't know why he wouldn't use his COVID year. But that's a big one that they need to return. And kind of like you guys mentioned, DJ Terry as well.
For the same in the same regard, and talking about defensive end, Taylor Wine was a guy that made a little bit of noise early in August. That relatively was kind of unknown because he snuck into the class at the end of the cycle last year, Josh.
Yeah, and being a kid from Tennessee, I mean, not a guy that, we had a lot of exposure to.
Sure.
So, yeah, absolutely. And I know, I mean, for people that don't remember, this is a guy that went from completely unknown to Oklahoma, USC. I want to say he ended up with roughly 10, Power 5 offers. So this was a guy that really came on late, really was the guy they seemed to like. I heard some good stuff similarly about Ashton Sanders at various points. I think he impressed some people. There is some reason to think that, okay, this can be Kentucky, Ole Miss. I mean, you go down the list. He has Missouri, guys. I mean, Missouri's done as good a job with D-line evaluations over the last 10 to 15 years, going back to Coach Kulagowski, as really anybody. So I think that bears some weight there to see them in on him kind of late in the game last year.
I have a couple of names. And this is not based on any information I've been given. I'm not saying watch out for these guys. I'm not saying that. Tawi Walker, portal. Could you see it? Could you see somebody throwing an NIL deal at him?
100%.
Gavin Freeman, just not working out.
I mentioned that to George on the way back to Salt Lake City on Saturday. The only reason, and I'm completely blinded by this, the only reason I would say no is because he's been on record so much talking about living the dream that he is. Yeah. With that said, is the reality I could go somewhere else and play a lot more than I am right now? That's the only thing that I would fall back on.
And especially if Farouk comes back and they say you're going to be in the slot next year.
Sure. I definitely don't dismiss it, but I don't know. I don't know either way.
Yeah, we're not saying there's smoke or anything.
Sure.
It's just it's a logical.
No, when you go through the roster, about. I mean, I think that it is something that is worth the conversation, and I think that as much as Gavin probably wants to be a bigger role in this offense, just like anybody else, I think that you would have to look at kind of where you stand on the roster or within the depth chart of Emmett Jones's room and say, am I going to is there an avenue to get me onto the field more?
Well, and he's got, not only a guy like Jaquez Petaway behind him that we all think is pretty talented, that you have to think at some point is going to get more and more snaps, but you look at the guys coming in, guys. I mean, KJ Daniels, Zion Kearney. I mean, there's some young guys there that I think there is some reason to think. Zion Raggins is another small kind of slot speed guy. That's obviously probably going to get a look in the return game because, I mean, I don't know how closely you guys, kind of categorize this. Zion Raggins is like a legit 10 300-meter guy. He can absolutely fly. So they're going to do everything they can to get the ball in his hands in any way they can, because he's just so dangerous. So, you wonder about that. Guys, one of the ones I wonder about is Kelvin Gilliam.
Yeah.
Like with all those defensive linemen they brought in, and what a big recruit he was a couple of years ago, being a guy from Virginia. I know he and Danny Stutsman's family are really close.
Sure.
So I don't know. Again, kind of like what we're talking about. I don't know. I'm just kind of connecting dots here. And you wonder a little bit about him and if he'd like to find some playing time.
Kelvin Gilliam is the perfect example of somebody that the transfer portal, in my mind, is made for in terms of, I think he's loved the experience at Oklahoma, but at the end of the day, all these kids end up at a school and they want to get on the field. They want to be able to play. Would you enter the transfer portal, basically shake hands with everybody in Norman and say, I've really enjoyed my time. I want to play football, though. I want to be able to get out onto the field.
And how does he read? Because, I mean, guys, last year when they took on all the defensive tackles, they brought in, Lacey, they brought in Paya, they brought in DJ Terry and Devon Sears. Pretty clear they knew they weren't where they needed to be with a defensive line room. Was that a function of those guys like Kelvin and some of the other guys being young? Or is that we don't have what we need here and we're going to have to recruit and get it out of the portal simultaneously and kind of fix this room? So I don't know. I mean, Kelvin hasn't played enough to answer that much, but I can say younger guys like Grayson Halton have flashed at times this year. So I don't know. I don't know what to make of that just yet.
And then probably the only other one you worried because you felt like you knew things were going well, but it's just been so bizarre is Javonte Barnes.
Yeah, and that's something that, you can really truly only base this stuff off of what you see on Saturdays. Obviously, we're not around to watch practice and really truly know what has happened to Javonte Barnes this season. But I do think it means something that whenever something good happens, he's one of the first guys out. Like, the guy is still locked in, and I know that we kind of fall back into this trap, and you can't really, I guess, predict the future based just on that alone. But it was kind of the same thing as like Jaden Gibson a year ago. It was like, is this guy checked out or is this guy, bought into what the program is doing? It certainly seems like he's still bought in. It certainly seems that he's still trusting the process of, kind of the decisions that have gone on in the running back room. But, if he were to transfer and put his name in, I think as soon as it came across, you'd go, yeah, okay, that makes sense.
And that's one of those things I think we'll just have to wait and see.
Sure. And the running back room, as weird as things were this year, just wait until the number one running back in the country gets on campus and Taylor Tatum alongside Xavier Robinson. And then, who knows what they're going to do with Andy Bass, who probably is going to win Gatorade Player of the Year in the state of Oklahoma.
Well, you mentioned recruits incoming. I think it's probably a good time to transition to recruiting. Before we do that, remind you guys, Dead Soxy, great sponsor of the pod, DEADSOXY.com. Use that promo code SCOOP. You get 25% off your entire order and 25% off sale items, everything. Great customer service, incredible socks. Wear them almost every day, and can't say enough good things. My friends that have all got Dead Soxy, they love them. They took advantage of the 40% off sale last week. They were just waiting for it. But now back to normal business, 25% off. If you need a quick Christmas gift to impress someone, they're not going to be disappointed with socks if they're from Dead Soxy. So go check it out. No Shows Boardroom, the athletic colorways, just the regular colorways. They've got everything for you, especially if you're a Sooner fan, to look your best on game day. So deadsoxy.com, DEADSOXY.com, and as always, stay Soxy. Josh, we've had some developments. At least we've had some Grant Brix developments because Fong has crystal balled him to Nebraska today. I know you've been checking around a little bit. What is the latest with Grant Brix? Is the roller coaster just continues to roll?
Yeah, it feels like to continue with your analogy. I think it might be Oklahoma is in the in the Ferris wheel. You go around, and finally, for seemingly random points in time, you just get off the Ferris wheel. It kind of feels like Bill Bedenbaugh was like, yeah, okay, I'm done here. Like I'm just, this is, and I'm not even going to say that Nebraska might have been ready to land him anyways. It's just my impression that Oklahoma was like, they need some answers, guys. I mean, we know this is not the full allotment of offensive linemen they want to take. They want to know where they stand with some of these guys. And I think there's a feeling with Brix that, and again, there's no hard feelings about it. It's just one of those things where this goes on and on and on. And then at some point, you end up getting him or not getting him, and then you miss out on another guy you could have had because you're focusing your energy there. And at some point, like we've talked about this forever, Grant Brix, there is a clear indication that if all things were equal, he would like to stay as close to home as possible. I think he knows those things aren't equal, and that's why he can't pull the trigger to Nebraska. But at the same time, he can't ever make Oklahoma as close to home as he wants it to be. So I think there is just this feeling of, even if Oklahoma gets him, they're going to have to worry every year about, does he want to just go back to Nebraska? I mean, maybe this is the Jordy Ball effect. I don't know. But you just have to wonder what that looks like when every year you're having to worry about, is this kid homesick? Does he want to go back to Nebraska or to Iowa, whatever it may be. So I think Oklahoma maybe just got tired of the ride a little bit.
With that said, it's a little bit of a gut punch, right? Just in terms of what they put into this recruitment, how important this 2024 offensive line group is, and just in mind as well, as we're just talking about the transfer portal and how active Oklahoma is going to need to be with the rebuilding of just sheer numbers on the offensive line.
It was really going to be a chance to kind of buoy this offensive line class, which I think Oklahoma likes. Like, I know OU fans aren't excited about it, and I'm not going to tell you that I think all these guys are just underrated and going to be NFL guys, but there's good players in there. I think there are a couple of guys that are absolutely going to be eventual starters, and I think the Akinkunmi kid, if he can put it all together, might be a really good player. We'll have to see and kind of look at how that goes, plays out going forward. But Brix was that high-profile guy where you can say, you beat everybody for this guy. Everybody wanted Grant Brix, and I know it's come down to Nebraska and Kansas State, but, we know Alabama wanted him. Everybody was in on this recruitment. He just kind of ended up at Nebraska, Kansas State, and Oklahoma. And so it was going to be that chance to say, okay, this class wasn't exactly what you wanted to be, but you got a guy with a lot of upside. We'll see what he does. Now you just kind of are back to the drawing board. You're going to have it's a 3-star offensive line class. That's what it is. And I've seen, other than Akinkumi obviously playing in London, I've seen all these guys. I've seen them all in person. They're all quality players. But it's a tough loss, and it, like we've talked about on the Monday Recruiting Report a lot, it puts a lot of focus and a lot of pressure on that 2025 class. Oklahoma has got to do well there. Now, they're off to a great start, but we kind of said the same last year in 2024 with guys like Casey Poe and Grant Brix and all these other guys. Now you're going to have to close on the Michael Fasusis, the Jonte Newmans, the Ty Haywoods. You go down the list, and right now that looks very possible, but you've got to finish the job. And I do know there's a lot of effort being put into that. I mean, that's where Oklahoma's primary focus is at this moment. But, I think now in 2024, you're going to have to turn and look at some, maybe a new name or two.
I've seen a lot of warnings from, recruiting guys on Twitter today and yesterday about, the transfer portal is getting ready to open. If you want to make a decision, you want to save your spot, you need to be committed before maybe a school changes their mind and gets somebody in the portal at your position that they like immediately. How much of a rush do you think there will be over the next couple of weeks with guys trying to make these decisions? And you've muted yourself.
Ed, so it's a double whammy. My 5-year-old, Miss Layla, came in and wanted to talk to me about how thirsty she is. So she is currently having a glass of water. And as we've covered privately, my kids have all week off for Thanksgiving break. That is not the world I ever lived in, so I don't know about that. But she came in looking for water. So I want to give your question the proper focus, but I cannot say I heard all of it. So let's do what we can, and I will apologize to everyone who has to hear you say it again.
No problem. Just you see a lot of recruiting guys out there saying, "Hey, the portal's getting ready to open. If you think you know where you need to go, you need to claim your spot before maybe they get a transfer at your position." Do you think that we're going to see, a lot of kids kind of trying to claim their spot over the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, I think over the next 10 days or so, you're going to see a lot of guys committing and making decisions because, but let's be real, there's not that many guys out there because the problem with that is, and people say that, and it's, I don't know, scare tactic's not the right word for it, but let's be honest.
But it's only for a certain group of kids.
Exactly. Most of the guys that are still on the board, all the big schools are going to wait until they're ready to go. Like they'll wait as long as like Grant Brix. A lot of schools are just going to wait. No, Nebraska's not pushing Grant Brix. That's not going to happen. They'll wait as long as he wants to wait. It's almost a sign of, and talking to some people today, there is some confidence about what's in that O-line room. I think people around Norman have a little more confidence than maybe the average fan does, or even, a guy like me that loves O-line and watches all these guys really closely. I think there's some faith in some of the young talent they've got there. I think they really like some of the pieces. And we can get into that in a second if we want to. But, yeah, there's absolutely going to be a push for some guys. The one that I'll kind of tie into OU here is a guy named Tyler Mercer from Prosper. He visited for the West Virginia weekend. I was kind of surprised he wasn't offered. I think there's some connection here to he and Grant Brix. I think largely they kind of said, Grant, we'd love to know what you're thinking. We want to know where this, we want you. You're our guy. You're the one we're pushing for. But if it's not going to be us, we've got to make some decisions here because our numbers are not where they need to be. We want you to be part of this class. But if it's not going to be us, we're going to have to move in some different directions. So I kind of wonder, honestly, I have my alerts on for Tyler Mercer to see, I'm betting he gets an offer within the next 24 hours. I think that's very probable. And then Oklahoma will kind of move from there. Eddie Pierre-Louis is still in play. But, yeah, and Eddie Pierre-Louis is a good example. He's not a guy everybody in the world's going to wait on, so he's going to have to make up his mind in fairly short order of what he wants to do and what his plan is.
All right. Anything just pressing in the recruiting world? I know, A&M, everybody's waiting to see what happens there, but do you hear any Any good vibes coming out of that situation for Oklahoma over the last few days?
I still hear more that makes me think the portal will be good to Oklahoma from A&M than what I do from recruiting. I think, now we'll have to see who gets hired. That could absolutely have a role. Like we look at, some of the, both with the portal and with recruiting, you look at a guy like, a perfect example is Latrell McCutcheon. When he was so excited when Brent Venables came in, and the second Jay Valai was hired, he was out. And that all can impact it. And there's all these relationships that we don't know about and don't fully understand yet that I think will have a role. But, I don't think Dominic McKinley is really that likely. I think, because I know there's a lot of thought that if A&M doesn't retain Elijah Robinson, their defensive line coach that is, working as their interim head coach right now, there's a lot of thought that LSU may try and hire him as their defensive line coach. And then, you just assume Dominic McKinley would just follow him down to Baton Rouge. So or stick with whatever massive NIL package A&M put together for him. So there's, I just don't see it in recruiting in a lot of ways. Terry Bussey is one we'll keep an eye on. But I still watch, like David Hicks and those kind of situations. So we'll see what comes out of those and what kind of transpires. But because I think that's going to tell us a lot about what A&M's NIL deals, how they've been structured. Are they something that a kid can just walk away from? Are they? Is it trickier than that? We don't know that stuff because it's just not public record. Yeah, there's so many variables. Mm-hmm.
Who the hell is A&M going to hire? That has been a lot quieter than I could imagine, especially for that fan base.
But I think that's good for A&M.
It's great. It's fantastic.
If it's quiet, it means they're going to get somebody that's coaching somewhere.
Or somebody that is worthwhile. Yeah, like you said. I've just been surprised that you haven't really heard a whole lot. Like outside of Jeff Traylor being reported, I think maybe the Austin American-Statesman or somebody reported that he had been interviewed for the job. I haven't heard anybody else.
I have.
No, I haven't. I'm always so torn on that. Like, do they go and hire a big-time guy, or do they go and get a guy that really knows how to build a program the correct way? Because I think we can all agree, whatever assets A&M has, and they are considerable. I know people, and I got into it a little bit last night with whether it's a top 5 job or program or however the hell you want to term that. Guys, you don't fire every coach for 40 years because it's a great job. Like I don't believe that. Now, is there a guy who could go in and make it a great job? Maybe. Like not even maybe. Yes, that's possible. So do you take a guy like Lance Leipold or Kalen DeBoer? I think would be really interesting. Guys that clearly know what they're doing and how to build a culture, a system, just plant that in their program and then give them all the assets that neither of those guys or others like them have ever had.
I will say this. If you were going to hire a coach that seemed to have a little stink on him like a Lincoln Riley, at least A&M's got a defense already there.
Yeah, and let the new guy, if he comes from the West Coast, come in and ruin it.
Lincoln Riley and DJ Durkin. Oh, man. Talk about just a whitewash of press conferences, just cleaning away all of their sins. Although it's unfair to lump Lincoln Riley in with that. He just lies a lot. He hasn't done anything criminal.
It's funny with Lincoln because people are like, where could he go? Who would take him? He'll find somebody.
Oh, 100. I mean, yeah, like it's kind of like we were talking about it last night. Like it's a super interesting time for Lincoln Riley, coming off of a 7-5 season. They're done. You hear rumors that maybe the professional stuff is very real out there. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens. I would not be just completely shocked if he ends up back on the market at some point over the next couple months. And by market, I mean NFL.
Or Kingsbury and Riley and and their kind of flameouts, are they an indication the air raid's kind of dying?
Or they're an indication that Mike Leach was more the air raid than the system?
Yeah. It just feels like it's something that has been a little bit. I mean, because guys, Caleb Williams and all his greatness, and they had a good back. They put 20 points up on UCLA.
The air raid is just, it dies in disgrace over and over and over. And like when I say disgrace, I'm talking about Tech firing Mike Leach and the whole what's his name, the guy's kid. Craig James.
Craig James's kid.
Adam James. You know, like
killed a hooker.
Allegedly.
No, but it always ends in violence. Like, it never ends well. It's amazing how the air raid has that kind of reputation. I mean, it did with Kingsbury, and then, you know, it's trending in that direction with Lincoln at USC. Comes down to, you know, that offense is not as balanced as it needs to be at times, and you have to be disciplined enough to either, you know, look at it differently or just commit to it fully, which is what Leach did.
It is absolutely insane to me that, and I didn't watch the game because we were up in Provo, but UCLA or USC having just 3 rushing yards against UCLA it's mind-blowing.
And that back they have is good.
It's mind-blowing how big of a disaster that thing was this year. It really is.
Josh, wouldn't you say that I can't remember their back's name, but he is Marshawn Lloyd, like, he's a better back than Lincoln ever had at Oklahoma.
Ooh.
Well, I mean, when he was the head coach, because that's when Mixon and Pirine were gone.
Yeah.
Kennedy?
That's fair. Yeah.
I think he's a lot better than
Kennedy Brooks is probably the gold standard, right? Yeah.
I mean, he had Trey Sermon a little bit. He's better than Trey Sermon.
Better than a healthy Rodney Anderson.
Ooh.
The first half of
Rose Bowl
TCU
Rodney Anderson
and Rose Bowl Rodney Anderson. That Rose Bowl Rodney Anderson.
That's one of the best backs that's played in Oklahoma in 20 years. If you could get
just that 2 quarters.
If you could get that Rose Bowl Rodney Anderson to play an entire season, he'd win a Heisman.
I still think as crazy as it is, I still think that Mixon's probably still a little bit undervalued.
Sure.
For how good he was. And the guy's still killing it in the NFL.
Yeah. I don't think we ever questioned him as a player.
Sure.
He is. I mean, when we went to Chicago, he was one of the most. It was like seeing a different version of Adrian Peterson, like the Adrian Peterson that was also a receiver.
The 5-star combine at Soldier Field. What Joe Mixon did over the course of those 2 days is probably the most impressive thing I've seen in a that combine type setting.
It was very Adrian Peterson like, not as a runner, but just as a overall talent as a running back, because he did things that no other running back can do.
Him tipping the ball up to himself on that during the 7-on-7 stuff.
The one-handed catch against Tech. I mean,
it's one of the best plays that I think I've ever just witnessed in person.
And guys, the Bengals don't use him
Mahomes
as much.
In that Tech game, Mahomes and Mayfield were so incredible. I'm not sure they were the best player on the field that night.
They weren't.
Joe Mixon was incredible that night, and nobody ever talks about it.
Yeah, he was unstoppable. And he was the only running back that they had that night.
That's right. What was Samaje was out with something, wasn't it? What was the deal?
I think he might have had a concussion.
I can't remember.
Is that what it was? It was something. Yeah, but I do remember it was just him, and it was seen so strange because you got used to them being together all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's just unfortunate that the perception of Samaje after the Picklemans thing, it ruined
Samaje.
What should have been. What do you mean? Samaje. I mean,
you mean Joe?
Joe.
Yeah.
Joe Mixon. Yeah.
Hey, I mean, say what you want about both of them. They're still pounding it out in the league. I mean, Samaje's had a nice. He's had a nice role with Denver. Yeah.
No, I mean, there's 2 great running backs. Probably the best 2 ever. I mean, you can talk about old days, Gerald Moore and, well, in my day, like Gerald Moore and James Allen. They're better than those 2.
Yeah.
100%.
But they're not better than
go back to like
Billy
Elvis
Sims
Peacock and stuff like that, yeah.
Joe Washington.
Yeah.
Well, like what would you say about like Adrian Peterson, Alan Patrick? Obviously, Adrian's better than everybody, but does the balance of Joe and Samaje, be better? Clearly, both being better than Alan Patrick.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Neither one of them are as good as Adrian Peterson as a runner, but they're both better than Alan Patrick.
Yeah. That's interesting.
What a weird discussion. I didn't expect that to happen on the pod. All right.
Hey, he does
got yelled
TCU
at last week.
What's that?
Yeah, I think so. We got yelled at for not talking TCU at all last week.
I was
BYU last week.
We were talking about all Big 12 first team and this and that. I just went and looked at the quarterback stats. You know what's surprising is how high Josh Hoover is on the quarterback list. I mean, he has thrown for 1,862 yards, 11 touchdowns. He has thrown for 8 picks, but he's only started 9 games or played in 9 games.
Yeah, I think that for Josh Hoover, like a lot of freshmen that are playing, he likes to turn the ball over. Oklahoma's going to have many opportunity, you would think, to turn over TCU on Friday. And I think that, with the way that Oklahoma's been able to force turnovers this season, with the 3 coming off of 3 turnovers a week ago, I think that they're going to be able to kind of take advantage of that. And that's where you offensively, if you do get the football in good field position, you got to go be able to go score. And that's where, if it is Jackson Arnold, you really have to be mindful of cashing in every opportunity that you're given in this game.
And TCU does bring a 1,000-yard runner into this game in Amani Bailey. I mean, they run him a lot. I mean, his carries and yards per carry isn't as high as other people around him. Like he's not an RJ. Like RJ Harvey he's almost a yard more per carry. And of course, nobody's compete with Ollie Gordon, but I mean, he's a top 10 running back in the league.
It's kind of fascinating in terms of, and I think that we probably haven't talked about it enough this week, just the confusion or whatever you want to call it that has happened to TCU offensively. And I know that Sonny Dykes has been pretty outspoken about, just kind of his displeasure with what Kendall Briles has done. Mm-hmm. And that leads into the discussion of, Kendall Briles is coaching against his brother-in-law this weekend and Jeff Levy on, both sides of the offensive sides of the football. I don't know. It's kind of just intriguing, the setbacks or whatever you want to call it for both of these offenses and, how they are related, literally.
Yeah, and they're very similar. So you would think that Oklahoma and Brent are going to have
they're going to have a good idea of what they want to be able to do or what they need to stop.
Yeah, and they're gonna recognize a lot of sets and probably know a lot about tendencies and things like that. And I'm sure Jeff is not going to be shy about giving away secrets of his brother to help them win. I mean, this team's got to get to 10-2. I mean, we talked about it with Kobe McKenzie last night. Like, what a big deal it is if this team gets to 10-2 after everything they went through last year. Look, if Dillon Gabriel can play, great, but they are going to sell out to win this game. I mean, I can tell you, this is a huge game for Brent. Brent looks at 10-2 as something that, he can point to with recruiting, with his current team, to his locker room, with the culture. Like, if you just listen to what we tell you, this can happen. And 10-2 won't be the end. They'll want to take it to the next level next year. But they are really, I think they as a staff feel like they get a lot of mileage out of finishing 10-2.
No doubt. I mean, again, we go back to what we were talking about in August. Before everything happened down at the Cotton Bowl, you talked about this team, if they could get to 10-2, if they could get to 9-3 even, and 9-3 would feel disappointing now. If they could get to 10-2, though, that was kind of the barrier of, okay, everything's headed in the right direction, coming off of a 6-7 season. And we talked to Isaiah Coe about this yesterday. We're going to have it in the opponent preview on YouTube Wednesday or Thursday. It's pretty important for this group to answer back, to kind of pull themselves out of what was a 6-7 and an extremely disappointing first year under Brent Venables. You can say that there is a little bit of a foundation in place if you can get over that hump, get back to double-digit wins, and just kind of move forward with the program. And, wherever they end up at a bowl game, we'll see what happens with the Big 12. I don't think they're going to be in Arlington next week. Needs lots of help. But it is important that they get back and kind of battle back. And as frustrating as it may be, and looking back at the 2 losses in Lawrence and Stillwater, it does feel like things have kind of leveled out or evened out, just in terms of, how disappointing a year ago was. Even despite the disappointments of Lawrence and Stillwater, you're still headed in the right direction.
I was going to let Josh go, but he looks busy. No, I mean,
sorry. I it's one of those things, right? When I can't see you guys, I'm always like, I don't know which way to go with this. Guys, I mean, 10-2 is absolutely ideal. It's a clear step forward. I mean, you're talking about a 4-game difference from last year. That's just huge. And you talk about the momentum they have in recruiting going into next year. You can build off that, like Carey said, with being 10-2, kind of just letting that show, okay, this is where we're going. And there's, even with the quarterback change and some of the things, you know who the quarterback is. There's no doubt. There's no question. They know who the next guy is, and he has a lot of credibility. So I think that really can help. And again, if it would only help all the more if Jackson Arnold would go out and fire off a really strong performance here, assuming he does play against TCU. So again, I think there's a lot of difference, even it's just for the fan base in 10-2 and 9-3. I think there's a big gap there, and what that will say and what that kind of signifies as Oklahoma heads forward.
Yeah, and just kind of, looking at this game in general, I mean, Oklahoma's really banged up in the secondary, especially at corner. Yeah. TCU does a really good job throwing the football.
And they have big-bodied receivers.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be a challenge for the secondary. I don't know if Gentry Williams can come back for this game. I mean, he's, like you said, he traveled, right? He warmed up last week. I mean, they get Gentry Williams back for an entire game. It's a game changer for them defensively, especially in this matchup.
If he can stay on the field.
Yeah.
And I hate to say that about Gentry, but that has become a thing. Like, he needs to be able to stay on the field for 4 quarters. Just get on the field, I guess, is probably the starting point.
Yeah, and it's the explosive plays that they're giving up. I mean, that poses a real challenge in this game. So it's a matchup that favors OU in the running side of things, not so much on the passing. Which it comes down to. And look, guys, I'll say this about Jackson Arnold. It'll be interesting because Dillon Gabriel really has developed a kind of a trust in the offensive line, in that they're going to protect him. If he just stays in the pocket and keeps his eyes downfield and finds his receiver, he'll take the time to do it. I don't know if Jackson Arnold is going to look like that if he starts on Friday. It is Friday, yes. I mean, is he going to bail, when the pocket starts to collapse? I think the one thing, like you notice with BYU, they had a spy on Dillon Gabriel the entire game. When Jackson came in, they didn't spy him, and you felt like, other than the holding penalty, I'll air quote it, that was called on Austin Stogner, like, he's going to have opportunities to make a lot of plays with his feet. So, I mean, his running could be big.
Well, and it's something that I think that, just hearing Levy talk after the game on Saturday, that was something that he wanted to do from the get-go when they found out that Dillon wasn't going to be able to return to the game, is they wanted to get Jackson more involved with his legs. And I think that's probably a little bit of a avenue in just getting him comfortable to the flow of the game.
Yeah, part of me wonders, like, I don't think TCU, I wonder how much BYU, A, was prepared for Jackson Arnold, and B, even what they really knew about him, because they weren't expecting to see him, and if they were, the game's over and they're not, clock's just running kind of thing. TCU absolutely 100% knows who Jackson Arnold is, and B, because of the situation, is going to be ready for him. So I think he'll find more spies, because, guys, I don't know about you, and I think Dillon Gabriel is a much more talented runner than he gets credit for. Like, he sees it really well. Like, when he is running in space, like, he sets up blocks well. You see him kind of shift and make moves that help pick up yardage as he goes. Jackson Arnold is a more gifted athlete, though. There's no question. Like if he's just running up the sideline, he is more capable of hurting you than Dillon Gabriel is. So I wonder how differently TCU would treat those two quarterbacks if they saw one or the other.
Yeah, it could get really interesting if Jackson Arnold gets the start, and it could get interesting in a really good way or a really nervous way.
Well, I think that, this team has kind of proven time and time again, too, that their inability to be able to extend leads and pull away from teams, I think that, particularly in this type of game, if you could go and put up 21 points quickly, you basically kind of pat them on the head and say, get out of town. But if you let them hang around and you have a couple turnovers early and you give them a little bit of hope, all of a sudden this is a TCU team that has enough weapons that you could look up in the fourth quarter and start kind of getting worried about the outcome.
Well, like we said, you should have an advantage, at least if Dillon Gabriel plays with the freshman experienced guy dynamic, because I think Hoover has like 11 picks or something this year.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy to think that Dillon, there could be two true freshmen starting at quarterback in this game,
and that in turn kind of. We haven't seen anything of Jackson that says he's a interception machine. But if you're the starter, you're in the middle of live bullets. You don't know what's. Even Dillon has his moments of nervousness.
Well, and compare it to last year, guys. When that game starts in Fort Worth, Max Duggan and Dillon Gabriel, two of the most experienced quarterbacks in all of college football. And this year you come back and it's possibly two freshmen that are very much learning as they go.
Yeah, one would have his first start, the other would have his whatever it is, 8th, 7th, something. All right, well, George has come in here. I think he's trying to tell us you need to wrap this shit up because we have more business after this.
No, I was just made some really good progress on my story, so I thought I'd come jump in for the very end. I figure you guys are wrapping up soon. I think you guys have been going for like an hour and a half, I think.
A little over an hour and a half. Any TCU thoughts?
Honestly, no. I don't know much about them. Other than I think the only game I've watched this year of TCU was their first one against Colorado, and they looked terrible. So
they made everybody believe that Colorado was awesome.
Yeah, no, they've been playing better the past few weeks, but also Baylor's terrible, who they beat last week. And then who'd they beat? Did they win the week before that?
TCU?
Yeah.
No, they got beat by Texas. They made that big fourth quarter comeback.
That's right. Played them close. So, Oklahoma should take care of business no matter who the quarterback is. And I think if Jackson plays, I think he'll throw for close to 300 yards and a couple touchdowns. I think he'll play really well.
He's not one of the highest paid beat reporters for nothing, folks. Thank you, George.
You're welcome. 5-star plays well. That's your analysis.
Heisman campaign begins Friday.
Yes. Yeah.
About Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year, Jackson Arnold. Could he do enough in one game to take it?
Hell, he might.
Dillon Gabriel?
You never know. I still think Dillon should
might
have
come
a say
down to
in
tiebreakers. We'll have to leave it up to the Big 12.
Well, it'll probably be Ollie Gordon though.
Yeah.
Well, we were saying earlier, it's whoever gets in the Big 12 championship.
I think Ollie might win either way.
Possible, yeah.
But Dillon should be first team quarterback though. Just like Drake Stoops should be first team. I think Tyler Guyton should be first team. Danny Stutsman should be first team. Billy Bowman, first team.
The problem is the coaches do the postseason, so that you could get some real.
But those five, to me,
Oklahoma
I think should be shoe-ins, in my opinion. And they only had one on the preseason, which was Ethan Downs.
Second team too.
Yeah, they'll have a lot on second and third team too. I would think this year.
Yeah, actually, Ethan has played, at least to that level this year.
Oh, yeah.
Not better.
It's been great.
All right, that's going to do it. We are going to move on to other business, so we got to end the podcast. Hope everybody out there has a great Thanksgiving. Hopefully you get to spend time with family and loved ones. Hopefully Eddie Radosevich gets his green bean casserole.
It's not even a question. Not even a question. We're ready to roll on Saturday or Thursday.
George, you'll be heading to Tulsa to see the family.
Yeah, should be a good time. My mom's making the turkey. We are hosting. I haven't been home for Thanksgiving in 4 years, so it'll be nice.
Now, Josh, do you just...
We're recording the opponent preview on Thursday. I don't know if he's going to be able to make
it. Now, Josh, do you... I picture you as someone that just has everything delivered for Thanksgiving.
Oh, no.
No?
Lord, no. No. That is Tiffany's mom can cook. Tiffany is an excellent cook. They do all kinds of stuff. So, I will say I am... As I have gotten older, I am less and less of a turkey guy. I have no problem with like turkey on a regular sandwich or something like that, but as just a thing, I don't care about turkey. I'm not interested in it for the holidays. So I don't even know if we're going to have a turkey.
Are you a ham guy?
I think we're doing steaks or something.
That's just un-American.
Well, I mean, that sounds like me, George.
Well, he's probably also going to get up and go do a turkey trot.
His actions on Age 6 were un-American, but I didn't disrespect him.
If you do a turkey trot, we're not friends, and you're probably a loser.
Eddie, you will like this. Layla is going to have her birthday party on January 6th, and I asked Tiffany if I could dress up like the guy with the face paint and the headdress, and I got nixed. That I was told no. So that was disappointing.
I think Eddie corresponds with him in prison now.
That's too bad. We're pen pals. That's too bad. I think that would have been a really unique, headline grabbing birthday party if you just could have gone with something along those lines.
Special memory for my 6-year-old. Just be amazing for her.
I would have loved to have seen the invitation. It would have been great.
That was the QAnon shaman.
The QAnon shaman, that's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly who it was, yep.
Also goes by Yellowstone Wolf.
Yeah.
What do you write your letters to?
Running for political office now?
That probably win, too. That's the country that we live in, people.
Is he not still in prison?
I think he is.
Okay.
Well, he was an industry plant.
Well,
okay.
You said it.
All right, everybody have a happy Thanksgiving out there. I hope you enjoy it, and we'll see you guys back here after the end of the regular season next week for another edition of the Unofficial 40 podcast on Soonerscoop.com.